talking about Jerry, it's hard to talk about Jerry because Jerry is a very private person. I was told Jerry was a genius. I have people come up and tell me I told you he's a genius. I don't know. I would know art. I would know an art from a 3-year-old could write me a picture. I wouldn't know if it was good or bad. Somehow or another, Jerry got into sculpturing. That was a surprise. I mean, we just didn't, that was just not in our vocabulary to study something that deep. He used to get mad at me because I thought that was a hobby. It's not a hobby, Mom. I don't think he made much money in it. I don't know. I don't ask Jerry questions.
Jerry's work began by using plastic objects that washed up on the beach near his home, and they were secured with glue and screws. And while most artists understand that those materials and methods are perfectly fine, a lot of the general public didn't understand and didn't value the work. And after Jerry expressed this concern, I suggested that perhaps he try bronze. It took a couple of years of convincing, but he finally went for it. And he found a man in Sacramento, California, who had a foundry, Alan Osborne, who admired Jerry's work as well, and they began working in bronze. One of the things that concerned Jerry about making the transition from plastic to bronze was maintaining the integrity of the materials, the identity of the materials. And yet it's been no problem whatsoever. These animals are made with plastic gas cans, plastic baseball bats, and other plastic materials that are very easy for the viewer to identify the parts. And I think that's very satisfying to Jerry.
This is the digital data, the result of a scan of the original sculpture. And with this, I will scale it, digitally just scale it up to whatever size they want. And then the scanner just creates a point in space, a 3D coordinate. And then the software will draw a triangle between 3 points in space. And what that gives us is a three-dimensional mesh, triangular mesh of the sculpture. So this would be the block of material. What I will do is rough it out. The cutter will just move through and remove the excess material, just like if you were carving wood or carving stone. You start with big cuts and remove all of the excess material. What all of this does is just really applying computer technology to the way sculptures have been enlarged throughout history. But when I'm done, it still needs to be cleaned up. The eye and the hand can't be replaced with technology.
You know, he finds these things and makes the most magic things out of them. A chunk out of a leftover object, so that's something very special. Who knows what this is, what this came from? He doesn't tell us, he doesn't even want us to know. And then there's a muzzle here, and then the horse's head, and it is just a total delight to see this, and to see it against here when the light comes through the combs, and it is just between the way it is made, the way it is assembled, and what it finally comes out, is just a delightful thing to see.
He sometimes works in series, and one of the series that I really enjoy is when he looks at the art world. It's so interesting. It's like an artist within the art world looks at the art world. He kind of leaves us guessing. Does he like that piece, or is he tweaking the art world? One of the pieces that I find to be the most intriguing of his homage pieces is the one he did of Manet's Luncheon on the Grass, Déjeuner sur l'herbe. When you have the image of Manet's painting in your mind, and then you look at Jerry's piece, what results is almost an after image. Jerry's piece is like a flashback or an after image of the Manet. And that tells me that Jerry is not just a brilliant artist, but he has incredible vision. He can see things in art. He looks, he knows how to look. She did that.
I'm a narrative artist. I was a filmmaker and I'm a sculptor, and my work tells a story. Like I say, you're going to know more about me than my mother knows about me after I finish talking. Okay. First, I want to talk about my growing up. Maybe some of these problems that I had growing up, also you were going through. I was born and raised in San Francisco to a very lower class, middle class family. My parents had no art at all in their household. To this day, they have never been to a museum. When I was going to high school, that I had really learning problems in school, and I did not have a problem with school. I loved school. I just had to study 4 or 5 times harder than everybody else to get a C. The other thing is I had really hard times learning how to read. I would go to foreign films and I teach myself how to read by reading subtitles. Now we talk about the art world itself. I know a lot of you want to be artists, but there's some cold facts about being an artist that I think you should know. I would think that your perception of me might be that I'm pretty successful. In my case, and I've been making art for 30 years, I have never made a living with my art. I've always had to get a job, or work, or do something. So if your mother tells you, or your father tells you, or your guardian tells you, get your degree and then do your art after the fact, it's pretty good advice. Barris Bellons, how may I help you? Yeah, we write bails out of town, yes. Reno, yeah, we could get someone out of bail in Reno. Do you know how much the bail is? $5,000. Yeah, the cost would be $500. Do you know what the charges are there? Oh, he got in a fight. Yeah. Anyway, oh, he's a Bay Area guy. And yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem. We could get the bail posted probably in an hour or so, but he might not get out until 5 or 6 hours after the bond's posted. I don't think there'll be a problem. Just come on down, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you very much. The Army brings out a lot of skills in people that they don't even know they had. And what happened was I went to the Army, I was 18 years old, I went to the Army, I was stationed in Germany, and all of a sudden we started playing poker, and I had grew up at my mother's knee watching her play poker. And I played poker like my mother, and before you know it, I had everybody's money.
I had poker games almost all the time, and I had them at my house because I had small kids and I didn't have to pay babysitters. So unbeknownst to me, I find out many years later that Jerry would stand in the back of the room and not say a word. I didn't know he was there. And he said he learned from watching me playing poker, and the reason I didn't make him go to bed because I didn't know he was there. He was quiet. He didn't bother anybody, and he didn't talk. He just stood in the background. So he was very observing, obviously.
My father, who was a professional boxer out of Chicago, he knew all these gangsters from Chicago. Sports figures know all the athletes. They know all the movie stars and entertainers, and they also know the gangsters who hang around them. And Mickey Cohen, who was a gangster out of Hollywood, he made bail. He was the first person ever to make bail out of Alcatraz. And when he got out of jail, they had a party for him at this restaurant called Joe Pioli's. My father was invited to go, and I asked my dad if I could go with him, and so I went with him, and I'm sitting at this table with all these people, and I'm sitting next to this guy by the name of Abe Phillips, who's a bail bondsman from Los Angeles who posted his bail. It was $100,000 at the time, which was quite a bit of money. And he asked me what I was doing. I said, I just got in the Army, I was looking for work. He says, why don't you go in the bail bond business? And the next day I was in the bail bond business. We were over at Melvin Belli's office, who's Mickey Cohen's lawyer, and I signed all the papers. I didn't know a bail bondsman from a ham sandwich.
San Francisco State was being challenged to create ethnic studies. 200, 300 people need to be bailed out. Because part of the movement is you got to get them bailed out so you can get them back on the street. I mean, this is not about giving them a right to a nice trial or something. No, we want them back on the street. We want to demonstrate the utter futility of your using police power against us. Your police power will not stop us. Jerry Barish, he did something that no one else has ever done. He got freedom for kids and people that were demonstrating against the ruling class of the United States of America.
He was not the only bail bondsman on the streets, but he was the only bail bondsman that was a friend, number one. And number two, he was the only bail bondsman that had any sense of social conscience. And Jerry was the resource for the protest movement in the city to free people who were being arrested. Jerry Barish was the person who secured and ensured the release of more than 700 people in the Auto Row, Sheraton Palace hotel demonstrations in the city in the middle 60s, when they were just a collection of real militant folk in the civil rights movement, reflective of what was going on in the South. And what I didn't know at that time was Jerry was actually an artist. He really wasn't a bail bondsman.
closer to home, Juliet and Romeo want to get married. They've been inseparable from the moment they met. As far as I'm concerned, love conquers all. But Othello is against any and all commitment. And of course, George W., he never has an opinion. Down at the card room, it is a different story. Rex doesn't like the idea. He thinks civil union is a better option. Old Yeller doesn't get what Juliet sees in Romeo because Romeo just sleeps all day. Fido says they're both fixed. Why can't they just live in sin like the rest of us? Red is the most outspoken of the group. And he thinks that a dog marrying a cat would absolutely ruin the sanctity of marriage between a dog and a dog.